Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Susan. I want to welcome all of you to today's discussion, and today's discussion is PM versus PM. And the reason for this presentation is because what I'm finding is a lot of organizations actually confuse both the roles of project management and product management. So today's discussion will focus on understanding the differences between the two roles and how both roles collaborate to actually make their organizations much more successful. And we'll be giving some examples of organizations that are doing this continuously, and we'll see what the results are based on the polls that I'm going to be presenting. So first off, I want to actually get into this discussion of PM versus PM. And as we're going to be covering this material, we will be discussing the following: current situation, what are the common responsibilities between the two roles, what are the key differences between the two roles, and compare the frameworks. We're going to be doing the comparison of the ProdBOK, the Product Management and Marketing Body of Knowledge, and also the PMBOK, the Project Management Body of Knowledge as published by PMI. And we're going to be focusing on key takeaways. There'll be a Q&A portion, so feel free to submit your questions. And I also want to point out that if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I actually shared the URL to my profile. You will also get a copy of the slides and the video post-event, as well as get a free copy of the Project Manager versus Project Manager ebook that I'll be distributing to anyone that actually goes and visits this particular post-event page. So let's focus on current situation. Current situation, and as we get started, let's do this first poll. Use the chat window to respond to this, and I will be sharing this particular one on the chat. If you can answer this particular question, and that is, which of these is actually the answer, best answer for you? If you can just type in the chat and submit your answer and respond, we'll be looking at that. But just to figure out, there's a CVS poll that was done about 5 years ago, I want to say, and it was published, and they actually ranked the top corporate roles in North America. And one of these roles was ranked higher than the other roles of management, functional management that are listed in here. Which one of these do you believe is the one that has the highest ranking today in North America based on this particular poll? And the answer is, out of all of these type of functional product management roles, product management is ranked highest. In fact, it is the only roles that are ranked higher are the roles of CEO, general management, and other executive roles. And then product management is ranked fourth. Every other type of management is ranked lower than that from the list that you see here. And also, the next question is, how many of you have actually seen these challenges within your organization in the last couple of years? Post-COVID-19, how many of these issues, 1 through 10, that are listed in here have you seen? And I will also share this information via the chat so you can actually tell me which one of these or which combination of these particular issues. You can just type in the numbers and let me know which one of these your organization has experienced in the last couple of years post-COVID-19. And have you experienced delayed or lost sales revenue or cancellations, canceled orders, lost customers, changing buyer behavior, changing dynamics in the way you interact with customers, disrupted product launches or delayed product milestones, reduced team capacity, new remote collaboration requirements, supply chain disruptions, and changing competitive landscape? Well, many are saying that most organizations, especially product-driven organizations that have not just product managers, but also project managers, have experienced any combination of these 10 factors in the last couple of years. And analysts are saying that it's actually going to take longer than the next year or so to actually, for many organizations to overcome when they have been really impacted by any combination of these 10. So in fact, most organizations today are not quite to where they were at the end of 2019. Many of them are still trying to figure out how to get back and how to bounce back into what they were at before. And the reason all of this is really stating that even though most organizations thought that they had a very robust organization, when they were able to experience these disruptions that actually disrupted their business in different ways, and productivity went down quite a bit for most organizations, they're trying to now increase the level of resilience. And resilience means at an organizational level that you have to become more adaptable, more collaborative, have better responsiveness, and be able to have a regenerative way of avoiding or eliminating any kind of unanticipated disruptions or any issues that may cause long-term disruptions, and try to figure out how to bounce back as quickly as possible. At the same time, what we've seen is that many organizations have actually adopted agile methods in the way they develop different things, products and whatever else they're selling in the marketplace. They're actually able to trying to achieve any of these advantages to agile methodologies. And this actually is comes from a study that was published by PMI in 2008. And most organizations, this is the reason why they have gone into agile methodologies. So that's the current situation. Let's talk about common responsibilities between the two roles. Many organizations are looking at what do they do when they're trying to have both of these roles implemented. And the fact is that many organizations have both of these roles implemented. One of them started first, and then the other one was developed later in the life cycle of the organization. But both roles work together to align cross-functional teams with strategic business objectives. And both roles require strong, influential, and collaborative skills to guide critical decisions that are being made. And both roles orchestrate key activities and manage key deliverables being produced within the organization. As a matter of fact, if you look at Forbes' latest list, and the latest one was published in 2021, they usually will publish this on a yearly basis, where they publish the list of most admired companies. Well, invariably, the top 10 companies that are here, regardless of who they are, whether they're Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Pfizer, or whatever else you see on this list, these are all organizations that over time have both roles implemented. Both product management and project management are implemented and working together to ensure that these organizations continue to achieve more than the rest of the competition. And as a matter of fact, usually their ranking in their industry is in the top 5. The ones that actually implement both roles the right way will actually become most admired, because they will focus on figuring out what is that unique value proposition that is hard to copy, hard for their competitors to copy. So let's move on to the next question, and that is, what is the most important task? Those of you who have been in project management, what is the most important task from your point of view based on these answers? And I'm going to share this via the chat. And if you can type in your answer, let me know which one of these is the one that actually is the one that fits best for you. And also, if you're a product manager, let me know which one do you believe is the number one task or activity for being a product manager. And if you answer the first question right, project managers are about what? It's about managing the project performance. You can't necessarily control the outcome, but you can certainly manage the project itself to ensure that at least you've done the best you can to achieve the outcomes that your organization is looking for. Whereas a product manager is actually managing the performance of a product. Again, they don't control the outcome of what happens once you launch into the market. What you're able to do is figure out what is the best chance that when you launch the product into market, it actually gets you the results that you're looking for, the outcomes you're looking for. And of course, doing any of those two things requires collaboration between the two roles, because project managers manage projects and try to figure out how to get their project to achieve the outcomes that were agreed upon. And product managers are managing products, trying to also get the highest probability of achieving the outcomes that the organization is looking for out of that particular product that they're managing. And both roles require collaboration in order to achieve. One way of viewing it is that project managers are responsible for actually managing the quality that is embedded into the product. And that entails what it does, how it does it, and how soon it's available to customers and buyers, as well as the total cost of actual production and delivering of that in a way that is actually managed so that you can actually have a chance to have a return on your investment. Whereas product managers actually manage the value being delivered to the customers, and they're actually measuring that what is that perceived customer value, and also measuring the value the product is delivering to the organization itself, and how it helps meet the business objectives from that particular product that is being sold. And you can't have one without the other. When you speak with customers, they expect both. They will talk about value that they're looking for, but they expect quality to be there. Making sure the product is delivered on time, that is consistent, that is accurate, that is reliable. These are all things and different metrics that are about quality of a product. But the value they're looking for is usually communicated by customers in different ways. What are the gains that they're looking for? What are the pain points that they're looking for relief from that pain when adopting a product? And what are the jobs that the product will facilitate or make a lot easier to do, because there's a lot of work, manual work involved otherwise without the product, if they don't have the product in hand. And there's some things that they're looking for that are about value, and some other things that they're looking for that are about the quality of the product and the consistency of the delivery of the product. And these are all things that may be embedded when you are actually conducting customer interviews, or when you're asking them, why are you buying this particular product over anything else that is available in market? And usually you need to discern which one of those things that they're coming back to you are about value, and which one of those things is about quality. And then you assign project managers to ensure that they understand what is the number one and the top quality metrics that need to be attached to this particular product. And product managers are the ones that are measuring what is the perceived customer value, and what are those intangible things that they need to embed into the product in order to ensure that they continue to maximize the value being delivered to their customers and prospective customers. And perceived customer value can be broken up into 4 different components. It's about personal value they're looking for, functional value they're looking for, psychological value of owning a specific product because of its brand association, and also a social component. And that in today's world is about figuring out that your product is actually doing something good for the planet. So it's about sustainability perhaps, or it's about something that is a high social impact that is viewed that your product needs to be associated with. Some of this value are things that are not things that your developers can do. It's things that you need to assign a product manager to figure out how we're going to associate our product with any of these things that are not necessarily about the product itself, but it's about delivering higher value to your buyers. And the work environment of any project or product manager is usually a struggle between how strategic your role is versus how tactical, how much external focus there's going to be versus internal focus. And this is where the 2 roles also will vary often across organizations, because what you find is that both roles tend to be too tactical in organizations that don't have enough process. And often also both roles stay focused on need to be focused on strategic objectives. And it's hard when the majority of everyone that you're interacting with on a daily basis is driving you to become more tactical. But also, project managers tend to be internally focused. And internally focused means that you also may be managing suppliers. So you may be a supply chain manager, actually addressing issues or ensuring that everything is maintained with your suppliers and your key partners that you're taking in before you deliver value to your customers. But it's still considered that you're actually managing the supply side, not the demand side. Whereas product managers are mostly externally focused, not only talking to customers and actually distributors, and even managing distribution channels that are about marketing, the way you market your product. They're also managing the perception of the community and your market in the way that you interact with people outside of the organization. That's really a product manager's responsibility. And often product management is broken up into product marketing management, and the product marketing side is the one that is also managing markets and customer segments, because there may be multiple stakeholders, not just one, in a larger market. Both roles have different perspectives. Here's an example in a construct of the interaction and the functions that project managers interact, and that's shown here on the left-hand side of this particular slide. And on the right-hand side, it's actually all the different departments and functions that a product manager actually faces. And if you look in here, product management does interact with project management, and it's because project managers are usually handling operations, and they're managing also the suppliers as well. And often everything else that involves project management, product managers will oversee, because they will be responsible for overseeing any role or any function within the organization as well as outside the organization that touches their product that they're managing. Project managers usually guide key decisions to maximize quality and minimize risk, whereas product managers guide decisions about building more value, delivering more value, but also building new revenue streams that you don't have, your organization does not have today. And comparing the frameworks, we mentioned that there's a PMBOK, which has been around for decades now, now in their 7th version, and the ProdBOK. And the ProdBOK was actually published by the Association of International Product Marketing and Management. And that ProdBOK has existed. It's a much younger construct, a body of knowledge that was published in 2006. So whereas the PMBOK has been around for a long time, the ProdBOK is much younger, was published in 2006. Now, project management framework, and this is a construct from the version 6. This is so-called the Waterfall Methodology, says that any project can be broken up into 5 separate phases: initiate, plan, execute, monitor and control, and close. And the knowledge areas, there's 10 of them, also version 6. Integrate, scope, time, cost, quality, resource, communications, risk, procurement, stakeholders. Stakeholders was the newer addition in the version 6. And the ProdBOK, from the ProdBOK's point of view, here is the complete product lifecycle. It's not just when the product is introduced to market, because there's a lot of work that gets done before a product can be introduced into market. And all of these things are being guided by a product manager working in collaboration with project managers that are conducting projects that are even before the product is actually launched into market. And so the ProdBOK has a 7-phase framework where the left-hand side is where things that need to be done before a product can be launched. And there's a lot of work that is usually done so that by the time you actually introduce the product to market, which is on the right-hand side of this construct, you're actually able to drive revenue and get that revenue stream into growth and then maturity. And if you don't do your homework right in the new product development lifecycle, the left-hand side of this, then most everything you launch into market will never become profitable. And this is the reason why product management has such a critical role within organizations when they're trying to introduce new products to market. Even when you're a startup mode, you're trying to fast track everything you do in new product development and ensure that you don't cut the wrong corners in doing that, because invariably when you introduce something, it will never be profitable unless you do your homework right and do a lot of market testing while you're still in new product development before you launch a product into market. So even though project management existed before in many organizations, and I'm talking about specifically software companies where project management was typical, the role of product management became more critical, even though it came after the organization was in place. And product management framework states that these 7 phases has 5 different knowledge areas, very similar to PMBOK version 6: organization, market, business, customer, product. These are the knowledge areas. And of course, technology is embedded across any of these things, because you can actually start finding different tools to help you track the performance of any of these 5 knowledge areas. So here's a comparison of both frameworks. Product management framework is on the top, and then project management is on the bottom. How would you integrate this when these things are talking about completely different things? Well, here's what PMBOK 7 is saying. And this is typical because Kotler, we actually published this particular lifecycle, the inventor of this particular product lifecycle. This is what the Marketing of Products publication, Kotler, came out with, and now it's been added to version 7 of the PMBOK. The issue with this is that it kind of neglects all the work and all the hard work that needs to happen in order for a product that once it is introduced to market, there's a lot of sunk costs already because it was spent in doing new product development and a lot of research and a lot of market research specifically to figure out that this product is going to become a blockbuster, right? That you're actually going to drive it into growth and profitability, because you're not just assuming, you know that there's a need for this in the market, and you also know the preferences and the variations of each and every customer segment that is in your market, and what they like and what they don't like about what is the proposed solution to their problem, which is the product that you're introducing to market. And if none of this work is done prior to the introduction, expect that you're never going to get to growth and maturity of your product. So this is the reason why the 7th phase is much better, because you're actually saying there's a lot of work, and that work can be divided into projects that get done before a product can be introduced into a market. Before you can deliver value to your customers, you need to do your homework, and it's all about doing the right things while you're still in new product development. Even if you're a startup, you're in a stealth. You may be a stealth startup, especially when you're trying to disrupt the market. And if you look at anything that goes on, any startup that actually successfully became a global brand, they actually did a lot of work in new product development. There were multiple projects, not just one, and they went back and forth in these phases that are in new product development before they were able to successfully launch a product that went into growth and then reached maturity as they were continuing to expand it to become a global product, a global brand. And this would be companies like Airbnb and Uber that followed a very similar process. And this is the waterfall, the approach and the integration of both frameworks when you're using what we call the waterfall approach, or this is the 5 phases of any project. Then came agile methodologies, and agile was quickly adopted within product management. And at the beginning of the 21st century, many product managers were already adopting agile methodologies into how the product was developed. And those of you who are familiar with agile means that now you have other things that now you're fixing the number of resources in your team, and you're relatively small because teams in an agile environment, by definition, stay small. Usually between 5 to 9 people total, no more and no less, as per Agile Manifesto. And there's a product backlog and the concept of a sprint backlog. And then you're supposed to have sprint planning and then a sprint retrospective before you initiate, and in the ending, closing of sprint or iteration, you have the initiation or planning phase, and then the retrospective, assuming that you have a validated product backlog. And that's how most people developed, actually implemented Agile, especially software companies, because they're the biggest adopter, the quickest adopter of Agile development methodologies in the 21st century. And because of that, there was a rise, because now all of a sudden a product owner, well, what is a product owner? Is that a project manager or is that a product manager? And that was the biggest debate of the beginning of the 21st century. What is the product owner role? And actually, if you can type in the chat and give me your perspective as to where have you seen that, and what is that perspective of who is a product owner, and is that product owner mostly a project manager, or is that a product manager? If you can chat, we can go and see what PMI did between versions 6 and 7 to account for Agile project management now needing to be in place, because Agile product development was already in place since the beginning of this century. PMBOK 6 and 7, here are the variations. And this is actually straight out of PMBOK version 7 that was just published last year in 2021. So first of all, knowledge areas are gone. Now you have project performance domains. And the 5 phases of the project lifecycle are still in place, but now those are now hidden as different methods, of which Waterfall is one of the methods in how you can manage a project. But now they've added Agile project management, which includes the phases of any Agile project team. And here's the project management principles. They went from those knowledge areas I mentioned earlier to now having these particular principles, and now there are 12. It's like, well, where did these project management principles come from? Because now that includes stewardship, team, value, things that were not in the knowledge domains. Well, if you compare that to the Agile Manifesto principles, and there are 12, you see a straight relationship between the project management principles and the Agile Manifesto principles. There are 12 of those and 12 of each, and they're almost linear. From one to the other, one-to-one match between the project management principles as per version 7 and those of the manifesto. And this is everything that was adopted in product management, and the way you actually do Agile product development. It was quickly adopted by product management first, and now it's being retrofitted into project management. It's now part of Agile project management. Project performance domains are as follows: stakeholders, teams. This is as per PMBOK 7. And now you can implement and integrate so-called lean agile methods. So remember, everybody's trying to now become more agile because of all these changes that are usually unanticipated, because of all these scenarios that are happening in market, and they're focused on everybody saying that changes are going to be accelerating, not necessarily staying the same, or expecting less changes in the next 10 to 15 years. Here's what most organizations are trying to do, and trying to figure out how to use both roles, product management and project management, to do these things and implement lean agile methodologies, not just in the way that you are delivering products, but the way you're discovering new products, the way you are designing new products, and the way that you are delivering products. Now, suffice to say that product delivery is, if you're only doing product delivery, this is what many organizations are doing today, where they're spending or reinvesting 90% or more of their budget in just doing nothing but product delivery. There's some incremental development and introduction of new features, but that's all you're doing. And what most organizations are saying, it's not enough to only be doing this. You need to invest in product design and new product discovery, because this is about product discovery is about your Horizon 3 concepts. Product design is about Horizon 2 concepts. None of these two horizons are revenue generating today, but you don't know what you don't know. So you need to figure out and explore so that you know when you need to embed certain things into products, your current products that you're already delivering, but also test in market products that you could be delivering next, because you still don't have clarity as to whether there's going to be adoption or not. Wide adoption is what you're looking for before you go into product delivery. And product delivery is when you formally are launching a product and you're driving it into growth and then maturity. If you're expecting any new product to be successful once you decide to launch, you need to do more work in product design and product discovery before you launch that product into market. And even though most organizations started introducing agile development in product delivery, what most organizations are doing today, the early adopters of agile, are now doing the same in concept testing and product validation before they're actually going to product delivery using agile. So they started doing this first. They're now back retrofitting agile to do product validation during product design and concept testing during product discovery using agile techniques, where the technique would be to initiate something, start producing a backlog, and then committing it for research and development, and figure out how to test and evaluate results by testing concepts in the market. Here you'll be testing different design approaches of a product and see which one actually has a lot more likes than dislikes in the market against real prospective customers. And you're doing all this work before you're launching that product into market. The most admired companies, this is what they're doing today. The ones that I mentioned earlier, this is how they're using project and product management and adopting lean agile methods to actually figure out how to successfully introduce a product that becomes a blockbuster and becomes a highly profitable product over time, because they have discovered all the unknown unknowns, and they have actually anticipated when is the right time to introduce that product that is the right solution for the right customers in the market where they operate. A comparison of the key deliverables is now also something interesting, because prior to Agile happening, this is what was the delivery of product managers was everything that you see here on the right-hand side. Project management is everything you see on the left-hand side. Well, that also has changed because Agile has turned that kind of like on its head. Now, when it comes to project management, project knowledge base is now become a product knowledge base. And a PMO is not just a project management office, it's now a product management office. And it's not that you have a chief project officer. Now you're seeing in most organizations the rise of chief product officers. At the executive level, there's somebody who owns the PMO, where P stands for product. And that is the implementation of a product knowledge base within organizations, not just projects. Project portfolio management has now becoming product portfolio management. And of course, the product managers are the ones that actually own product portfolio management. Work breakdown structures are now becoming product and sprint backlogs. Feasibility studies have now become a product business case along with an embedded business model. Product requirements are now becoming customer and user stories. Lessons learned are now becoming part of a retrospective. And then quality assurance plans is now considered continuous QA testing that is adding to the way you do unit and functional testing and system testing. And if there's interoperability testing, then that continues to be the same. And now you're doing a lot more interrupt testing, especially when you have a web-based application and people are now using third-party applications, and you need to create interfaces and connectors so that you can work with other web-based applications that your customers are also utilizing today. And that makes the process of interoperability testing a lot more cumbersome over time, because the more applications that your customers are using in their jobs to be done, the more testing that you need to do to make sure that your application or application suite continues to operate seamlessly and automatically becomes connected to other web-based applications that your customers are using today. That is the challenge if you are a vendor of cloud-based applications today. But this is why the success of Microsoft is high, because Office 365 has done that shift of becoming being a client-based, mostly standalone type of application suite, to now being a web-based SaaS model that not only operates within the applications, but it also operates with other third-party web-based applications that are being used by enterprise users for productivity purposes. And then suffice it to say that also the skill set, and this is kind of like the skill sets that most people are projecting. This is actually from a recent article that was written by McKinsey. When they did a study, they're saying most organizations today, because they're finding out that there's a lot of moving parts in figuring out how to transform your organization to become more agile, more adaptable, more collaborative, and to become more nimble, you need to not only expect your people to, just because you're shifting their title from project manager to product manager, you won't be able to do that without training or upskilling or retraining. And that has to go on continuously, not just be a one-time thing. This is what McKinsey is saying. In the next 10 to 15 years, expect a lot more training for not just the management roles, but also everyone that needs to now shift from being more of a waterfall to shifting to a hybrid to become more agile over time. And you might still have a hybrid model where you might have some projects that are being run in waterfall style, whereas the majority of your other projects are going to be run in an agile methodology, using an agile methodology. But that shift of that business transformation means that people will need, especially the managers, functional managers within organizations, will need to be upskilled and reskilled to ensure that everyone understands how to manage projects effectively, but also do things like critical thinking, leadership, adaptability, empathy, and increase your digital skills. Now, if you ask me, when you're putting project management and all of these, this is what product management is. A successful product manager understands how to do project management the right way, and also has a high leadership, high ability to do critical thinking as well as design thinking, and also be able to adapt very quickly and figure out how to empathize with customers and understand what they consider value may be something different than whatever your product does as a number one to meet the needs, but that you can actually do association to your products to ensure that you continue to increase the perceived value of your customers from your product by associating your product in different ways with other things that they also care about. Things like social nature and things that I spoke about is value that are mostly intangible when it comes to development of a product. And often you need to do this as a product manager. Now, I want to summarize by saying, how many of you have actually been working hard at developing these skills? Because this is what McKinsey is saying. And I'm thinking that in the digital skills, you need to actually start also increasing your design thinking skills, not just your problem solving skills, but your ability to choose what is the right problem to focus on solving before you actually move into solutions. These are all things that are part of things that are typical for product managers to be leading. And often, if you are a project manager, you expect that all those things will be clearly defined. And product management is really about a role that is focused on exploring what is the right value to deliver and to whom, and what is the right problems to be solving and for whom, and when does it make sense for you to actually move into figuring out whether it's something has the right solution or not, and what is the right solution based on the people that you have found that are in need of a solution in the market. These are all things that product managers do that project managers seldom get to do because they're mostly internally focused and usually don't have the skills to actually do this. Just to give you a brief example of my career, I'm an engineer by profession, and I spent decades doing nothing but design and development, mostly doing a lot of research projects because I work for Jet Propulsion Laboratory and NASA. And I kind of rose because of my leadership skills and became a project manager first. That was my track in the first 15 years of my career. Post that, I shifted into a role that was mostly at the front end of design and development. And I was working with people with titles like architects and senior designers, not developers. And in that role, I became aware of a role that was actively talking to customers and prospective customers of new solutions that were not available at the time. And this is how I ended up in product management. And I've been in product management ever since, and I've been in product management for over 20 years now. But my career track started in project management as a leader of having done multiple development projects and having actually managed multiple development projects, became a project manager before I became a product manager. And that's a typical career if you really want to be successful in product and you love exploring. Product management is a great role and a great shift, but you do need to have additional training to figure out all those things that you don't do as a typical project manager today. And with that, we're ready for Q&A. I want to say, if you're interested, you can actually join this community. I'm going to share this information, this short URL, that you can actually join if you're interested in hearing many of the talks that I do, which is mostly for both product managers and project managers. And this way you can actually stay in touch with me, but also we'll share that information with you so that you can stay in touch as we shift into Q&A. And Susan, I believe this is my contact information also, by the way. So feel free, as I mentioned earlier, feel free to connect with me, and I will send you a link to a post-event page where you can view the slides. I will also give you a free ebook, which is Project Manager versus Product Manager, and you can read more details about everything that I spoke about earlier today. I want to thank you so much for listening, and we're ready for Q&A now.
Could you please highlight the most important gap for a project manager to be able to shift to a product management role?
That's a great question. And I think the first thing is you need to assess your skills. Also, if you have, if you're only certified by PMI as either a PMP or even ACP, Agile Product Professional, or a certified Agile project professional, you need to really understand how Agile is right now not only being used for product development, but it also needs to be implemented in the areas as product design and product discovery, especially if you're working in a product organization. And I see a lot of this confusion, especially in IT software companies, where they start with, being a IT services company and trying to make a shift from being a service provider to being a product vendor instead. And, they think that immediately what I see is they find out what a problem that somebody else is working on, and they say, oh, we can build something better. And then they make a lot of assumptions without testing them in the market. A successful product manager understands that you can't just go with whatever your executives are telling you to do and believe that. Often you need to do a lot of validation and verification in the market to find out, is this really going to be a problem that's worthwhile for us to solve? And bring back justification as to whether or not, and even find out why not, and have those discussions at the executive level. And often, having that understanding as to what are those hard facts and what is the right type of market research that you need in order to bring proof as to whether or not something is worthwhile pursuing before you actually begin designing development is something that you need to really learn. So it's about leadership. It's about understanding market research methodologies and how to go up and talk to customers, and often maybe overcoming some of your tendencies, because you can't just be, even if you're an introvert, you need to learn how to relate to people and how to increase your emotional intelligence and your empathy for others. Understand their paradigm first before you jump into solutions. And often in product management, you're working with completely different roles, not just with supply chain management or not just with developers. You're interacting with executives within the company and also marketing and sales and customer service. A lot of customer facing functions that you're interacting with when you are a product manager. And those are the kinds of things that you want to make sure that you increase your skills to ensure that you are asking the right questions and then verifying what you're hearing from your executives when they're telling you what to do. And you understand that if you go that route and make too many assumptions, you know what happens when you start designing and developing a product when you're making too many assumptions. And that's what I would
Thank
say.
you. Oh, sorry.
So let me know if that answers your question, because I can always provide you a different perspective if you need something else. And I also invite you that if you have any more questions, reach out to me. We can always schedule a one-on-one call where we can have these conversations.
Great. Thank you, Hector. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Thank you. And the person that posted the question said, thanks very much. That was very helpful. We do have one comment and another question. One comment was, great presentation. I like the fact that you compared the changes in PMBOK 6 versus PMBOK 7 and the new focus of Agile. So thank you. And then the question is, how would you compare product manager versus program manager?
That's another great question. So I would say a product manager is indeed a program manager for the products that they're managing. And that is, the definition of program manager is that they are actually managing the life cycle of multiple projects that are all interrelated. And in this case, as a product manager, all the projects that you're managing are related to the products that you are managing. So often, especially in some of these most admired companies, it's not just that you have project and product working together. Often you also have program managers working in the same company. And often a program for most of those organizations may be a horizontal or a vertical, depending on how you view the organization. This is how program managers are working together with product managers. One example is that you may be a B2B vendor, a software vendor that is B2B. Let's say you're Atlassian, for example. And Atlassian is the maker of Jira. Well, there's a lot of different software companies that have adopted Jira for product development of software products, especially when they're using agile methodologies, right? Atlassian, they have program managers that are strictly assigned to specific industrial sectors of software vendors that are using the same product, Jira, for just very specific industrial sectors. So let's say there are now a lot of companies creating solutions for the construction industry, which typically has been a lagger in software adoption. But now there's a lot of construction tech companies that are creating these platforms, portals for construction workers managing construction projects. Well, there's a program manager within Atlassian studying what construction industry does and what are the problems within the construction industry that can be solved through a software portal that uses Jira and other applications to actually track the effectiveness and the efficiency and the performance of construction projects wherever they happen for those construction firms that are doing construction. And that's typically how program owns a specific niche where the product may actually be being sold into multiple niches that are all B2B niches, especially when you're a B2B software vendor. Salesforce does exactly the same, because Salesforce is also another example of a CRM that is now a global brand, and they have all these different roles that includes program management that are assigned to specific accounts that are in specific industrial sectors that may exist across markets. And they're carrying out the likes and dislikes of that niche to figure out what they need to embed in order for their platform to become more popular. Salesforce being implemented within construction firms as an example. So that's a way that program managers will work together with product compared to project managers.
Okay, great. Thank you, Hector. We do have another question. Quick question to convey the intersection and dependencies between portfolio management vis-a-vis product management.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that sort of like project portfolio management is going away. If you're not in a waterfall environment and you're shifting, you expect that it will be a full shift into agile instead, expect that the project portfolio management will disappear and it will become product portfolio management. In a hybrid environment, however, where you might have a combination of both, some hybrid projects and some agile projects, then you might still have project portfolio management, but it's going to be a subset of product portfolio management, especially if you're a product vendor and that's how you're monetizing from anything you're selling in the market.
I want to thank you, Hector, so much for presenting with us today. Always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much.